I'm Shanah, and I'm the moderator for the panel. I'm going to have everyone just quickly introduce themselves up here. I'm sorry that not everyone got to hear you, but you're going to get to hear everyone. So Les, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm Les Harper. I'm a volunteer at BYU of Hawaii. Kind of the self-proclaimed sustainability person.
Self-proclaimed and well-earned.
And well, I've been known as a rogue volunteer. I tend to not always follow the exact rules that academia would like to follow, and since that, we've accomplished a lot. But my background is business and entrepreneurialism, so I've taken a little different course than a lot of people out here. From Canada.
Yeah.
Who are the cool people from Canada in the room?
Somebody right there.
Whoa, you're taking over.
Not me, sorry. I was just,
He was emulating an enthusiastic Canadian.
I like Canadians, I'm just not one of them.
One day, perhaps.
Something to aspire to.
Tell him your favorite saying about Canada, your t-shirt.
Oh, well, you know the saying, right? It's Canada is really well positioned as America's hat.
Oh,
yeah, it's a good one.
Well, we're more the one I'm more familiar with. It was from our Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau. He says, "Being neighbors with the Americans is like sleeping beside an elephant. It doesn't matter what they do, you know they're there." So.
And you're gonna get pooped on?
We're trying to keep it clean here. It's a family show.
It's quite a
the Canadians, they're so kind. even your jokes are vanilla. It's great.
I can see we're gonna have a fun time here.
Okay, we've come to the funnest session of the whole on that note, Scott, do you want to introduce yourself? Now everyone knows your sense of humor.
Sure, right. So I'm Scott Cooney. My former tagline was that I've been an entrepreneur, green entrepreneur, 4 times over for the last 9 years. I'm an author, wrote a book about green business. I've done sustainability consulting for Walmart, Johnson & Johnson, and a couple other big companies. I developed a sustainability board game for the state of Hawaii, and I live and breathe sustainability. My new tagline, because that's boring and dull, is that I am in a great relationship with an amazing vegetarian chef, and my life is awesome.
How do you going up or not? I don't know.
Wow, I'm glad I was first.
Top that, Marguerite.
My name's Marguerite. I'm totally single, but no.
Hey, boys.
No, my name's Marguerite. I'm the director.
Let's get this back on track here.
It was the liquid. I'm sorry.
Coming into sustainability dating.
It was, if they hadn't had a liquid lunch, believe me, this would be very different.
You know, I haven't laughed a lot today or yesterday,
Yeah.
so it's kind of good, you know?
It's late in the conference. We're okay.
You're blushing.
I do. I'm Irish.
That's what
Totally
happens after you
Irish.
speak to Scott. Yeah, okay.
So I'm the director of the RISE program. RISE is Rewarding Internships for Sustainable Employment. I got my start in sustainability in Washington, D.C. as a consultant to the Department of Energy. Came out here to support the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative and have been building and creating the RISE program for the last 2.5 years.
And my name is Shanah Trevenna. I'm actually a mechanical engineer for the last 15 years. I used to work for big corporations like IBM and Philips, etc., back in my amazing home country of Canada. But I was really dismayed at how those companies at those times were treating the environment and people, especially when I went to work in other countries. And I completely switched my life, took every course that Canada had to offer in sustainability, and then chose Hawaii to spend the rest of my life because I really think that we can be food and energy independent in my lifetime. So I've been here for 7 years, and I'm just going to kick us off by taking you on a little journey to what's happened in the last 7 years that will then feed into some of the other speakers. We all know each other, obviously, because the people that really care about this stuff end up finding each other and working together in all sorts of different ways, and I've worked with everyone up here, and we've all become good friends, so it's a fun world to live in. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the Student Energy Ambassador Development Program today, and the roots of it started back in an initiative called Sustainable Saunders about 7 years ago. Did anyone ever hear of this? Oh yeah? Okay. So this is where a group of students, me being one of them, I'd come here to do my master's. We had permission to take this one building and try to do everything we could to make it sustainable. And we met every week, we had a great time with it, we laughed like this. And we took on a big challenge at UHM, which is trying to make change in an institution and a bureaucracy, and a lot of people wanting it, but no money and no idea how to do it. So long story short, within about a year, we had every expert that we knew come and speak to us. We had engineers come and show us things. We had people from DVET, et cetera. And we tried everything, and at the end of the day, we had put in bicycle racks, and we had put recycling on every floor, all of those good things, but we had also reduced the energy bill by about 26%, which generated about $150,000 in savings. And that was 8 students without any money. I just wanted to show the power of students and actually making a measurable impact in an area that everyone cared about. So this is the roots of how we started. This is when the conversation was about taking a lot of conversation and ideas and trying to putting them into action. Every conference labeled back in 2006 was ideas in action. That was the tone of things. And after we had done this, and a lot of pilot projects were going on around the world that were showing these types of successes, I started noticing at conferences that the conversation turned to how do we take all this action and turn it into institutionalization? Like how do we make it part of the institution? One thing that we did is we designed Sustainability 101. I designed this course, and it was 7 core concepts that are pretty common lingo to people that are really interested and savvy in sustainability. And it was to get every new group that came every semester into the Sustainable Saunders Initiative, which turned into Sustainable UH as we started helping others. We wanted to get them up to speed quickly on the language and the experiences that we had. So this curriculum actually, this semester, and probably in the last couple of weeks, has been announced as being sort of the core of sustainability across the curriculum for the college system, so starting at Capilani Community College, which means that if a professor takes one of these core concepts and integrates them into their curriculum and goes by a review board, they can put an S designation so students looking to take courses can go, oh, there's a sustainability-related course. That's a good example. And that all got captured in this book, Surfing Tsunamis of Changes. I started teaching classes on sustainability. That's just a couple ways that you can institutionalize what we had been learning, and this is the total story of how we went from 8 students to creating the sustainability movement, so I won't say any more about it. But what started happening is these students that were taking these courses and learning this language were starting to get new jobs. And they were jobs sometimes that already existed, someone was looking for someone, but a lot of times it was jobs that never existed before. They started creating new jobs. They started networking, and they'd meet people and they'd say, wow, you're so enthusiastic, and you did that with the school, could you do that with my business, etc. So I started to really see that there needed to be green career paths, I called it at the time. No, I hadn't heard green workforce development at the time, but I just kept saying we need green career paths so people can be in high school saying, I want to be a sustainability coordinator when I get it. So it went from institutionalization to trying to take that into meaningful careers, and then that turned into this whole movement of green workforce development over the last few years. This is the program that began to be envisioned at that time, and now this is the RISE logo. So Marguerite's the executive director of RISE, stands for Rewarding Internships for Sustainable Employment. The very first 2 RISE interns are featured here, and this is a sociologist and an engineer, and we got a contract with the U.S. Coast Guard, and we did a waste audit of the entire Sand Island base and identified about $17,000 in annual savings, and they actually implemented everything. And these 2 students were hired full-time after that to energy audit the whole base. So creation of new jobs again. The program at the time was called SIP, Student Sustainability Internship Program, I think. And after doing these types of things for maybe 4 semesters of trying different stuff, we finally realized that the sweet spot was $15 an hour for 15 hours a week would allow students to replace their part-time jobs and not add it to their already 2 full-time and part-time jobs. And at that point, we got hired by the Department of Education, and we were to do a sustainability assessment of one of the schools, and it was their greenest school, actually, and they had just built it a few years previous. They wanted to see how they had done, and when we checked out water, waste, and energy, we found still a ton of excess, and this was actually common in a lot of buildings that are built green. People think that because it's built green, you can use it a lot. So anyways, we identified that, and then we were hired by Kalani High School, or by DOE to do Kalani High School, same thing. This time we took 20 students along with us, high school seniors, and taught them everything we knew, and again, we found huge savings. So this is from the Department of Education Head of Facilities, which is someone that oversees 240 schools in the state, and he basically said, look, you guys are doing this a couple times now, it's repeatable, can you build a program, and can you actually become an entity that does this on a bigger scale and reaches more schools? And that, at that point, is when I pretty much stopped doing RISE, and it got handed over to Marguerite, who's going to be speaking about it. And this is actually the logo and the website from the Kupu website. This is now who houses this program. And it was wonderful to incubate what we did within RISE and then be able to walk away from it, and then Marguerite continue it along with Asia Yuri from the Environmental Protection Agency. So I think Asia and I coming together with the vision and Marguerite taking it to where she's going to tell you and taking it in all sorts of new and amazing directions is a really cool thing when something can grow and then branch off and really become many different great things. We became Smart Sustainability Consulting, so I have 10 staff, and everyone ranges from like 20 to 40 hours a week. And I kept with a similar model, except that I felt like a lot of these guys had been RISE interns at $15 an hour. It was time for them, they had been graduated for a year or two. It was time for them to make more money, so that it was $25 an hour plus benefits. So that was the goal of, there's got to be a next step afterwards. The whole goal of our company is to empower building occupants and the stakeholders to implement sustainability, mostly in the area of energy efficiency. The program itself is called the SEED, Student Energy Ambassador Development. And basically what it is we train students to energy audit their schools. It's pretty straightforward. We've done as young as 4th grade, and we've done, here's like the community college system all the way up to like military, etc. So we've really expanded this to a lot of different age groups and cultures. And we don't actually tweak it that much between 4th graders and military, if you can believe this. We tweak a lot of the cultural references and the inspirational pictures, and the, we talk about energy security more so with the military and more about a green job when you grow up with the kids. But in terms of the technical, it's pretty similar. We have one trainer per team, from trainer that's on my staff. About 5 to 10 students per team, and about 5 teams per session. And so we'll have a room like this set up with 5 tables, and everyone's clustered around the table. Each table gets an energy audit kit that has some basic material in it. They get a worksheet that we refined over many years, and then we have a really interactive 2 to 3 hour training where people are running around measuring things and really learning how to use the tools. The SEED works with a month-long audit support. So then after we do that training, we come to the school 2 or 3 times a week, which is something different than what Les is going to talk about, because we did one of our first of these with Les, and we just did the training and then we walked away from them and they had to do the rest on their own. Now we do a month-long training or support where we come in and we actually work with them to make sure they collect as much data as possible, and then they give it all back to us. And I think that the relationship with the trainer that they form over that month is a real big part of this, that they feel really empowered and confident in doing the audit. And at the end, we come back and we show them all their results. So we'll have the team stand up and we'll applaud for them. We'll ask them some cool things they found, like, I can't believe this microwave uses this much energy, as much as like 10 computers. We'll show them the numbers. We'll say, this room of people found $125,000 in no-cost savings. And then at the end, we have them all come up and they get their certified energy ambassador badge. There's a ceremony, and they become energy ambassadors, and they join a community of ambassadors across the state. So this is the deal. It's just 1 month, 3 hour training, month-long support, come back for the certification ceremony, and then we help them develop an action plan. And especially if they've been with the Department of Education, we meet with the DOE Facilities Department regularly to help them figure out how to implement everything that the students found. Some of the schools have been private schools, some of them have been college campuses, so depending on who we're working with and how much help they want from us, we can continue that support. So why it works, I'm going to check this really quick, I think I have like 3 minutes. Why it works, we're engaging and fun. So we have this whole Facebook component to it where these girls, you can see they're holding up their one finger. It means that they finished like the first phase of their audit, and so if you post that, you'll see on the Facebook sometimes people put up 2 fingers or 3 fingers showing how far along they are in the portions of what they committed to do. And when they do that, we send them milestone rewards, like a pizza coupon for their team. Or what was even more popular was the iTunes music, more popular than an iPads. Someone's like, I already have 2 iPads, but I can never get enough iTunes cards. So little surprises like that. We also know how to get students to care. So we talk a lot about green jobs and the opportunity in the state. Renewable energy, for example, is growing 4 times faster than the state's average in the economy. And Scott will probably talk to this, but because I learned it from him. But the green component in a lot of the major sectors, like organic food within the food sector, are growing faster than the rest of the sector. So if you can get into the green track within a sector of the economy, you're probably going to have a better chance at getting job opportunities. It also works because we link to Hawaii's goals. So the governor has committed to giving out prizes to the students, that sort of thing, under his vision of a New Day plan. And we know how to inspire, that Hawaii can be a model and a world leader, and that these students are part of that mission. And so when they go, wherever they go in the world, and when Hawaii's energy independent, that's going to be some pretty huge bragging rights that they were part of that from the beginning. We also create a unified team of coordinated ambassadors at every school across the state. That's our ultimate goal. And we leverage these ambassadors. We write them emails. We get them to do presentations to their fellow students, that sort of thing. So we've had 5 students from Mililani go and train 33 other students and do the whole school. This is one of our first real measurable successes when we actually started doing the program under the name SEED. And I'm not going to go too much into this because I know that Les is going to talk about this in greater detail, but you can just see from the month of July, year over year, it was a $44,000 savings in that 1 month from implementing the energy conservation measures, ECMs, that we had come up with. So I'll let Les tell you a lot more about that. So we create these inspired and inspiring role models for Hawaii, and they really become empowered. And a lot of what we hear from people and the students are things like, I thought only experts could do this, or I went home and told my parents, and this month we saved $100 at home. So they just start to feel like confident in sharing knowledge, which I think is one of the most powerful things any educational experience can give you, and I think it translates into anything they want to do in life. So I will just briefly mention some other programs that we've launched. So the AIM program is Achieving the Energy Independence Mission, where we've trained 75% of the buildings in the Hawaii National Guard so far to energy audit their whole building. And they of course energy audit like the whole thing because they're military. We also help the TAG, which is their highest authority, sort of like their CEO, set a goal of reducing the energy 5% every year for 5 years. So they have a 25% energy reduction goal. So it was quite a feat to get that kind of high level commitment from leadership. And here's the type of energy savings that we reported when we do our certification ceremony with them. They're not called energy ambassadors, we call them energy advisors. They become the point of contact in every building across the whole National Guard. And each one of those month-long trainings finds about $100,000 in energy savings. We also do a lot of implementation support, so we teach their custodians and facility staff how to actually do delamping and install plug loads, that sort of thing. And some of the results are really interesting. The LEED buildings that we've done are some of the buildings that are the biggest energy hogs, interestingly. And so you can see this one person said that he had the building on 24/7 and down to 64 degrees, but after our training, they went back and he taught all the full-timers to use the AC differently. So behavior modification is always been an interest in the energy field, but nothing compared to, I think, what it is now, because everyone's learned everything else. It's kind of the last frontier. And we're talking to, big entities on the mainland, like the Environmental Defense Fund, that says, we really want to get into behavior modification. And so what we're doing is sort of leading the way, because we're working with such large institutions in such a comprehensive way that these results are becoming of great interest. And our basic premise is, you empower people to understand how to use this, they're going to change their behavior, not because they were told or incentivized, but because it's part of their self-identity now. So and it's kind of working that way. I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit on some of the things this benefits, and just say that we've been able to tailor this and provide this training to students from Thailand, Vietnam, Burma, Jordan, and the West Bank, at-risk youth. This was a partnership we did with RISE. Here's some 5th graders at Waikiki Elementary. Basically, we're uniting all of these different groups that have the same understanding of energy. And the triple bottom line is it results in measurable no-cost savings. We engage all stakeholders, so to have facilities and students and leadership all in one room learning together really creates a cohesive team that is, I think Les will agree that it's really powerful. It's a really powerful thing when you know there's not going to be anyone within any area that's really going to push back on this, because everyone got on the same page at the same time. And and I think that the last thing I'll leave is that it inspires green jobs, a path to green jobs in Hawaii. So thank you so much, and I'm going to hand this over to Marguerite, and I was perfectly in time, so you have 15 minutes.
Awesome.
Yeah, okay, I'll keep us all in time. And I'm sorry, we don't have time for questions in between, but we do have time at the end, if that's all right. Yeah. I think I can just close mine. I have no idea. Plug this in? Okay. Do you want me to look while you're...
Sure. So Hi everyone, my name is Marguerite. I'm the director of the RISE program. It's been an honor to be able to work under Shanah's vision and to carry out what her and Asia Yuri, the US EPA, envisioned for the RISE program. So who here, besides the interns that I know, have heard about the RISE program before today? Okay, that's not so bad, about half. So the RISE program, as Shanah has perfectly set up for me, you know, it's not even important.
Are you sure? Yeah, I don't see it. I'm sorry. How many engineers does it take to find a USB port?
So I guess we can kind of just look at this. It's a Prezi, but you don't have to plug in on the computer. The RISE program, as Shanah said, is the model of $15 an hour, 15 hours a week. So paid internships in the field of sustainability. And we've partnered closely with Kupu. Kupu is our nonprofit arm. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. And they bring 200 youth and young adults through their programs a year. So RISE is just one small program within Kupu, but we also extend outside of Kupu because we are competitively funded with federal funds every year. So Kupu and RISE partner together with all of the project teams and funders that you see in this top corner, and a growing number of them. So in a traditional internship program, the interns would just sit under these organizations and be paid and given tasks with those organizations, and that would be it. But RISE is not a traditional or your ordinary internship program. We have a mentor underneath the RISE program that has recruited, hired, and mentored these interns. And so we have a really competitive selection process, which I'll talk about later. And we make sure that the positions are vetted, and we create the positions and we find the funding in order to pay these interns, and we place them within these organizations, and we have them work collaboratively with others. That mentor also takes care of the back office support, which is really valuable for public entities which are not as agile or fast moving with their bureaucratic systems as a nonprofit. And it's also really helpful for small nonprofits who don't have a back office. And then what's key to the mentor is that they provide project support. And so they're vetting deliverables and reports and doing project review and helping that intern to feel comfortable in their position and have a third party outside of the organizations that they're working with to vet some of the issues that they're having. So in addition to the back office support and project support, the mentor has trainings, on-the-job trainings, basic job skills training, and what we call a sustainability seminar series, which are those small pictures down there, that carries throughout for the intern throughout. So we have a set number of required trainings and other customized trainings for the interns based on their skill set and background and interest. So the interns are really getting a much bigger picture of Hawaii's sustainability issues outside of just what they're working on. And you can find out more on our website, risehigh.org. I'm going to transition now and talk about a couple of the findings that we've had now that you understand the premise of the internship program. So I have these 3 basic findings, and it's the end of the day, so just keep it to 3. The RISE program is successful because we're connecting a very simple supply and demand in the state. So we have the supply of qualified interns and a demand for environmental projects. We all know Hawaii's sustainability issues. I'm not going to go into them. I think we've heard all about our energy and food insecurities here. But I will go into how many qualified interns we have applying for these programs. And we connect this supply and demand with funding, so you see the dollar signs as S's. So this program actually is the triple bottom line. We have people, planet, and profit all in one. People, the interns, planet, the environmental projects, and profit. So all of our interns are paid about $15 an hour, 15 hours a week, and that's what keeps it competitive and successful. And let's go into some of the statistics. I thought, because this is an academic crowd, you'd be interested in seeing who's applying for our internships. So for the last 2.5 years, we've had about 50% of our interns coming from, or the applicants coming from University of Hawaii, 25% from HPU, the GLSD program is really successful, and the rest from different places. A lot of the mainland school or students are actually come Aina trying to come home. So we do have a large local impact, but we actually get applicants from everywhere as well. I really like this pie chart because it shows the level of students that are applying for our programs. And so we have about 70% undergrad and 30% graduate degree level coming in. And what I especially like about this is that you would think, okay, you generally have about 30% grad degrees coming into the program. Wouldn't that make your next pie chart of who actually becomes interns all graduate students? Wouldn't you pick the highest academic performing? But if you actually look at this next pie chart, who we end up selecting, and this is not by design, is consistent with who's applying. So we actually have 70% undergrad and 30% graduate degree. And that goes to show that it's not just academics that are making you more competitive for jobs. You know, it's much more than that. We look at soft and hard skills. We look at passion and how this internship will help you in your career. And so this is some pictures of some of the interns we've had over the last 2.5 years. We've had over 30 interns, completed over 12,000 hours of paid work. And so what are we doing is what I'm going to get into next. But you can see that we've grown a lot. We're actually nearing 40 since some of Shanah's early adopters in the pilot program she ran. And this is a list of all the partners that we've had so far. I think there's actually a few missing. And I feel like I'm name dropping here or something, but I'm really not. What this is about to me is showing the organizations that are investing in workforce development, who, if they started with the RISE program early on, they were taking a risk in hiring an intern instead of a consultant. And they're also the organizations that are getting the benefit of the morale boost of watching someone come through the program, grow throughout the program, and really make a difference in their lives and not just the environment. And so these are a lot of the organizations that I've been trying to grow for the last 2.5 years. We have, you know, Shanah's reflected in UHCC, but we've really grown so much with EPA funding and all funding from different places. These are a bunch of the funders. So next I'm going to talk about sustainability progress is achievable through this model of connecting qualified interns, structured mentoring, customized training. It's less of an intern and more of consultant level work is the design of the program as we've structured it. And these are some of the areas that we're working in. So Shanah already touched on clean facilities, which is government and schools, but we've extended to all these areas. And of course it's a Venn diagram, right? So clean air and clean transportation are linked, and clean energy and clean air can be the same thing, but just for the simplicity of this, these are the projects that we've been forwarding all through workforce development. So we're in clean transportation, clean energy, clean facilities, clean air, and waste reduction. And I could probably do a presentation on each internship and what they've found, but I'm just going to cover some of the highlights. We had an intern who worked with Maui College, that's why I decided to highlight her here. She released a report that surveyed 60% of Oahu's total electric vehicle chargers. Hawaii is an early adopter for EVs, and so this is a report that got sent to the Department of Energy federally and is really providing a lot of lessons learned for more adoption of electric vehicles. And they also maintain the state's biggest database of where electric vehicle chargers are and actually turn that into an iPhone app, which hasn't been released yet. But her work was actually published and picked up by the Star Advertiser. We helped her write a press release, and so that doesn't say anywhere in it that it was by a RISE intern. No one would ever know that the results of that newspaper article was by a RISE intern. And I'm not really a marketing person. I really like to see, you know, the success of the projects. I'm not very good at putting the RISE stamp on things, but it's really surprising when you look into it how much RISE interns are impacting Hawaii's sustainability. And this is that intern, and one of the coolest things was after her project, she realized she went into class and her professor quoted her own work, had seen the newspaper, had seen, perhaps saw the report, maybe just saw, you know, heard about it, and didn't even realize it was her work, but quoted her in it as she was sitting there. And so that was a really aha moment to show, like, people don't even know that it's these interns that are doing the work, and it was really impressive. Diesel emission reductions, it's kind of a lesser known sustainability topic, but we've had a number of interns, I think 4 or 5, that have executed over $1 million in EPA funding to reduce diesel emissions, which is a health hazard as well as an environmental hazard. So we've reduced over 82 tons of diesel emissions, which if you think about how light a CO2 molecule is, that's a ton, literally more than a ton, 82 tons of diesel emissions that we've reduced. And we've also converted the bus to biodiesel we use 125,000 gallons of B20 that's locally produced by Pacific Biodiesel. And we really have a lot of lessons learned from that too in supporting the bus, who is very hesitant to use a new fuel in their buses. And they've become really comfortable with it, so we're hoping that they'll consider using biodiesel in the future. And what I was really impressed with this intern, this is a quote from one of her project managers with Honolulu Clean Cities. He's also the transportation manager for the city and county of Honolulu. He said that he would not actually take any more DERA funds, Diesel Emission Reduction Act funds, unless they had a RISE intern. And so there's a lot of grant money that could be used in Hawaii, except executing federal and government funds is really difficult. No one wants to deal with the reporting. But a RISE intern does. That's an amazing experience to have, to get to understand how the funding comes into the state and how to execute those funds. And so it's been a really rewarding and innovative way of bringing more of these grant dollars into the state and impacting sustainability here locally. I also wanted to mention food waste and emissions reduction because I'm paying Julie to be my audience today. She is our food waste intern, and she's funded through the EPA. And food waste is a huge issue in the state, and we were glad to see in the draft policy for UH that food waste is a priority. And so she's actually doing a ton of work in food waste, but one of the things she's doing that might relate to some of the universities here is bringing the EPA Food Recovery Challenge to the state. And so she's already created conversations with Kapiolani Community College, UH Manoa, HPU, and hopefully UH West Oahu in order to get them to be the first local organizations to take part in this Food Recovery Challenge, which sets a baseline so that you understand how much food waste you're wasting, and then sets targets to reduce that. So talk to Julie at the end. Any questions? Do I have like 5 minutes left?
I don't know.
Okay. And then, well, I'm almost
You have
done.
3 minutes left.
Awesome. My last conclusion, I realize, is slightly controversial since I'm speaking to a bunch of academics, but academia is not enough. We're past the era of...
We know that, by
yeah. Thanks.
That's why we're here.
We're past the era of when a college education could actually open a door for you alone to get a job, and so we have a confluence of changes in our society, globalization, offshoring of labor, productivity gains in IT that reduces the need for human involvement, and the Great Recession that has made it really difficult to get your foot in the door. Internships are just one of those solutions. These are some statistics up here about how dire a situation is. We're so educated, yet the most in debt in history. We have 3 million Americans with bachelor degrees that are in jobs that don't require an education. And so we have a lot of new methods of learning. We have Skillshare, which is innovative, out of the classroom methods of learning through peer-to-peer. We have a lot of consortiums online where people around the world are taking classes from Yale and Harvard and some of the most impressive schools out there. And learning is no longer confined to the classroom if it ever was. And internships, as I said, I think is a really great way to bolster your resume in order to get a job. This is the statistics of who's getting jobs after their internship. We have about 60% who are employed in a related field. This is a list of a bunch of the employers, not all of them. I haven't updated it recently. But many of our interns are actually being hired directly by the organizations that have them as an intern. 30% are still in school, so still forwarding their degree. So if they became an intern as a sophomore and then they're a junior when they finish, we can't track if they get a job after. And then others decide to advance their education, but many times the internship really guides them into what they want to be doing in the future, which is super valuable. Here's a quote from one of the more recent interns who was hired on by the organization she interned for, saying the RISE program helped her transition from academia into the renewable energy industry. And here's another Jackie Lum who's really inspiring to work with, and she says, rewarding to say the least. It gave her a better sense of how to conduct business in Hawaii. So this is our website. I would like to mention that we are hiring on the Big Island. Do we have any Big Island folks right here? Okay, spread the word. We just announced we have an internship outside of Hilo that is going to be working with an environmental compliance organization for 6 months, and it's competitively awarded. And then also I'd like to announce, if this really interested you, I just announced recently that I'll be leaving my position, so I'll be saying a hui ho. I'm going to move back to the East Coast to be with my family, but I'm really invested to find someone who's going to take the program to the next level so that I can continue to hear our successes. Mm-hmm. Any questions, or should we leave it to the end?
I think we're going to leave it to the end, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You didn't realize that there would be job opportunities in this presentation. Workshop, did you? It's a wonderful, actually, the way you closed that, Marguerite, was sort of a perfect segue. And talking about somebody help me out here. What's that?
Do you need something?
Oh, I don't
Slideshow,
know.
there it is. All right, thank you. Perfect. So academia is not enough, and that is definitely true. I come from a business background. I've been an entrepreneur or an executive level in someone else's company for the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's just going.
Oh, maybe it's,
I think he's in like a PDF
oh, this is a
or.
preview, so,
Perfect. Okay, great. So ignore what you just saw. So I've been in the business community for a long time, never been in academia, but coming out here, looking at the business school and realizing that we don't have any sustainability curriculum across pretty much the entire UH system in the business school. Here represented at this conference are myself, Dr. Art Watley from HPU, who is tangentially involved in their MBA program, and one of his graduates. And that is all the business folks that you're going to find at this particular conference. And if they're not here at the Sustainability in Higher Ed, we probably don't have them, right? So seeing that gap, I approached the business school and said, you guys need to be teaching sustainability. Every other MBA program across the country is teaching this stuff. And it was the fastest bureaucratic process that I'd ever seen in my life. Within a month, they said, can you teach in a month from now? And I said, sure, sign me up, let's do it. And it was obvious that they were already looking, and they really wanted sustainability to be part of the business school. So I have dipped my toe now into academia.
I was one of Scott's students, one of the best classes I've ever taken.
Thank you. And one of my favorite students, of course. So not coming from the academia background, my thought has always been that the solutions really are in the private sector, and the solutions really are, as Marguerite was saying, with direct learning experience. So maybe I'd love to, are there any teachers, first of all, in the class? A couple. Good, excellent. I'm going to teach my format for engaging students in community and doing sustainability work. And you are free to take it and run with it and use it as you see fit. For the other folks, maybe one or two of you, just throw out your favorite class of all time, why it was your favorite class. Jonathan?
An entrepreneurship class, because we got to take full ownership of our project, and the deliverable was up to us, and it was we had full ownership.
Cool. And what did you do?
I created my nonprofit, the Aloha Movement Project.
Awesome. Very cool. And that was part of how you got your grade for that class.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
I actually followed through with creating it. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a thought about their favorite class they've ever taken? Yeah.
I had an operations management class recently. Basically no textbook, it's just all hands-on case studies, and
Cool.
it's super fun.
Nice.
And probably the most real-world lessons I've ever learned in a class.
Great.
So cool.
Where was that?
At BYU Hawaii.
Okay. Cool.
There's one more person.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Mine was a meteorology class, because it was for a science class, you could, it was tangible, you could look out the window and see what you were learning right there.
Yeah. Right on. That's awesome. So I think the common element there, go ahead.
Mine was a systems thinking class, which was incredibly mind-boggling. And mind you, I'm in an undergraduate sustainable science, which is business heavy.
Okay.
And I was writing off the Manoa MBA because I didn't think there was any sustainability in the business program.
Come into my program. I would love to have you as a student. The good news is that the MBA program actually piloted my class and told me, screw this up and we're done forever. We're never going to teach sustainability ever again. But thankfully, Shanah and her classmates gave me high reviews, and so the class continues. And so now we've got approval to do it for the third time starting in the fall, so it's exciting. So if you're looking to start an MBA program in the fall, not quite yet.
and I did my project on the SEED program. I did a business plan for the SEED program. Same as Jonathan.
You've taken the punchline away from my entire presentation,
Oh, no.
Shanah. No, I'm kidding. Well, I think with the bottom line with education and classroom settings is that there's a place for it, and you learn some foundations and that sort of stuff, and it's great. But really, to engage the students, it's community involvement, it's real world stuff, And so coming from a non-academic background, that's exactly what I kind of wanted to do in my class. So I'm going to run you through kind of how I did it. But this is how I started the class, by saying crowdsourcing, basically saying, how do we make this the greatest class ever? This is a weird new class, sustainability MBA program. How do we make this the best class you've ever taken? By then, they've taken how many classes? 100 different classes between their undergrad and master's level. And how do you make it the best? That's a big challenge, right? But that's what I wanted to do. That's my dream and how I set out to go. So in all this academia, you get all this kind of stuff. You get these models, people throw up these things, there's Venn diagrams, and there's, as you already noticed, I'm Italian, so I do this anyway, but there's a lot of hand-waving in a lot of this stuff. So there's those social stuff, and there's this, and you bring it all together, and it's great, and it's sustainable in the middle, and this is wonderful. And the students leave going, yay, that's awesome. What did we just learn? One of the textbooks I assigned has a variety of different models that they do. So MBAs love box and arrow diagrams. So if you ever do an MBA program, you're going to see lots of them. And this was one that was right in the first chapter of the Business Guide to Sustainability. That's what BGS stands for. And this was their model for how to do sustainability assessments for companies. And you look at it and you go, oh, that's great. And if you read the chapter, it's like, okay, what do we even do with this? Where do we even start? So models are nice. They give you some sort of framework to work with, right? But not that exciting. So then you've got data and trends and such like this. So this is some outcomes of a survey that was done by Ernst & Young looking at shareholder resolutions. Okay, and so shareholder resolutions are where people who own stock in various companies vote on how that company is going to go forward. So you can show them cool stuff like this. Look, 45%, a total dominant proportion, a plurality at the very least, of all shareholder resolutions have to do with sustainability. That's for Monsanto, ExxonMobil, all the bad guys. They're all facing shareholder resolutions brought on by their shareholders saying you must do this. They don't always pass. They don't get a majority of the shareholders. But this is dominant, right? So this is cool. Again, yay, rah, rah. What the heck does an MBA student do with this? You can also go into Six Sigma and total quality management, just-in-time management, and all these other kinds of things. These are a lot of things that just get thrown around in the business community. It's all very theoretical. These are just lenses. So if you imagine a contact lens and you put it in, and you can see the world through a different color. Right? So these are just lenses through which you can view your business. And then you get super creative and go, and then you put in the green lens, and you can look at things in a sustainable fashion. And isn't that exciting? Students, yay, all right, sounds good. What do we do with that? So you can start to make it relevant by bringing it to the personal level. Okay, so one of my big things is factory farms. Okay, in factory farms, they use a lot of antibiotics, right? Preemptively, before animals even get sick. Something like 70% of all antibiotic use is in factory farms for no good reason. Basically to bring animals to market faster. What that does is it breeds antibiotic-resistant bacteria. This is a MRSA infection. You guys heard of MRSA? It's one of the big superbugs. That's my knee. That's me. I can show you the scar. It's gross. I ended up paying, yeah, it's gross. Don't worry, I won't linger on this slide. Anyway, the idea is I ended up paying out of pocket about $3,000, had to have 2 minor surgeries, and go under some pretty intense antibiotics to get this treated. What's that? Oh, people lose legs. It's really bad. The average cost of treating one of these infections is $47,000. And that comes out of your pocket. What's that?
How did it start?
Lord knows.
You didn't have a cut?
Nope. Just showed up one day. Started with a pimple. And I was like, oh, that's a pimple. It's weird. Why would I get a pimple on my knee? And then it got bigger and bigger and bigger. But this is when it really started to become personal to me. And so you start to integrate this into your teachings, and all of a sudden people start to get the concepts of sustainability and say, man, we cannot continue down that path. So you make it personal. That gets a little bit more interesting. But then you start messing with people's coffee. Forget about it. No way. You cannot mess with my coffee. So in my class, what I do is, in the Scheidler College of Business, there's a little coffee place called the Bean Counter. Get it? Anyway, I send people out into the hallway, literally to go down to the Bean Counter, and say, do a sustainability assessment. Do you remember this? I sent you out there. And people go out during class, and they take a 15-minute break, and they go out, and I give them a little framework, and they say, oh, well, there's stakeholders, there's customers, there's employees, the owner of the place, there's other people who work at Scheidler, etc. There's some trends, and there's some cool things that we can probably do, like immediately off the top of people's heads. And 15 minutes later, a couple of students out in the hallway come up with all these things that one tiny little coffee shop can do to do sustainability. So this is really cool. It's starting to get real world, right? But then, what on earth do you do with this? How do you actually put this into play? So a big part of what I teach, obviously, is economics. And I say if you can make the financial case for things, then clearly businesses will pay more attention. And so this is, we just start to get into return on investment, right? So this is cold calculating return on investment. It's very basic. This is obviously a super simple example. We go a lot deeper. This is an LED bulb versus a 60-watt incandescent bulb. And you can see the return on investment. It starts in year 3, and by the time the end of the life cycle happens, it's $85 a bulb, right? So pretty cool. So this makes it kind of real and interesting for folks. So once you have them kind of interested, now models can be made more exciting. And so you take this, and so this is what they in the book gave, and I've added 4 new layers to it. So if you take this as a micro example, let's talk about Bank of Hawaii. Who banks at Bank of Hawaii? Who uses their ATM?
No.
Who uses ATM? So their ATMs, to make it simple deposit, you gotta take your check, you gotta remember your account number, sign it onto the back, and then you gotta fill out a deposit slip, so you pull one of those out and fill out your deposit slip. And then you gotta grab an envelope, you peel off the sticker thing, right, and you throw that away. Put the thing in the envelope, whatever, so now you've got 2 pieces of extra paper. You put it in the ATM, it goes away, you get a receipt, you have no option to not take a receipt, right, so you crumple the receipt, throw it in the trash. On the other end, there's a person right on the other side of the wall who receives this thing, opens the envelope, throws it in the trash, takes the deposit slip, punches in a number, throws that in the trash, just to get a check in, right? It's kind of silly. So let's look at all the different ways you can change this, right? And so every idea that people come up with becomes a spoke on these wheels. The energy wheel, the materials wheel, how you affect your industry, how you interact with your community. So it starts to become a little bit more real. And then you prioritize them. So you say the biggest waste down here and the materials are the 2 biggest aspects you can kind of pay attention to. The energy stuff, the industry stuff, it really just doesn't make a lot of sense. So now we're starting to put this into some sort of framework where it actually makes real world sense. So this is the ideation phase. And then in step 2, you take all those spokes and you put them on a piece of paper and you do a feasibility assessment and ROI calculations. And what you end up with is this graph. So you do financial ROI and then environmental ROI. What's the kilowatts or the gallons of water or something along those lines that something's going to save? And so you get that, you measure that, and then you get this, you measure that, and if that's here, that goes there, right? And if this one has a high financial return on investment, but doesn't really do much for the environment, it goes there. Right? So it's a way of plotting things out. All of a sudden you've got 75 ideas, and now you've got metrics behind them. And then you prioritize. Something with good financial ROI and environmental ROI, those 3 become the priority items, right? So you start to act on those. So then you implement these things, and so the students are putting together communications for the business owner, and they're actually literally reaching out to business owners. So the students in my class are working with real businesses in the community to put this exact program into place. Okay? What can be done for the bean counter can be done for just about anybody. And so that's what these guys do. So here's one of my students this semester. His name is Godwin. He's a freaking genius. He has a master's in chemical engineering and decided for some odd reason he wanted to come back and get an MBA because he's a sucker. He's working with Glazer's Coffee Shop. And he's done a full sustainability assessment in Glazer's Coffee Shop because he hangs out there all the time. Here's his financial return, all the stuff that he does, all the calculations. Don't get lost in the details. But the idea is some of them have fantastic ROIs, like infinity ROI, right? Financial. And so he goes to Glazer's with this thing and he says, check this out, you have an infinity ROI. Like this is huge payback, right? And it helps the environment. Isn't that cool? And then whatever, here's some other stuff. Here's the negative ROI. So literally sometimes stuff costs money to do. But at least now the business owner has the data, and they can make that decision and say, well, maybe it's worth investing an extra $13 to get some biodegradable forks or whatever it is.
I just have a minute or 2 left.
Cool. Here's another one that a girl in the class did for a nail salon. Same kind of thing. What she did is identified a couple of different things, materials, energy, etc. But what she really focused on was toxins. So she said, let's get rid of some toxins. And she actually put numbers to these toxins, right? The toxins that people are being exposed to. So she did all the ROI calculations on low chemical nail polish, organic lotions, all that kind of stuff, and found out that, in fact, they're negative, but maybe they have a marketing aspect to it. Now the business owner has that data. Here's another one this guy did. This is Adam. He did this project for the Kapolei 7-Eleven. He went nuts. This was his midterm. He turned this into his midterm. He organized everything down to the number of kilowatt hours per month, the dollars, etc., and organized everything in such a beautiful way. I guess I'll just skip through that, but here's his prioritization, right? So you can look at the things that get high priority up there. He can now take this and go directly to the Kapolei 7-Eleven and say, here's your report, here's how you do it. So this is the whole program, and this is kind of how I've integrated into the class. I think I'm just going to go stop there.
Very good. It's me.
Do you need help in any way?
Probably.
What was step 3 again?
Step 3, prioritization. Yeah. I can share the slides with you too if you want.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Canada?
Canada A.
Canada.
Well, it's been really interesting how this has all segued one into the other. What's the plan? It was originally planned that I was going to be last, but I was going to follow right behind Shanah. So
Yeah.
It's been very good. It's been very good. I have a confession to make, and I'm happy to make it, and that is I'm not an academic either. In fact, I take great pleasure in saying that because, as Scott has alluded to, sometimes there's things that you have to learn outside the notebook, outside the textbook. There's a little quote that I carry around with me. I'll read it to you, and it kind of comes down to the crux of it. It's by David Foster Wallace. He's a novelist. Probably the most dangerous thing about the academic education, at least in my own case, is that it enables my tendency to over-intellectualize stuff, to get lost in the abstract argument inside my head instead of simply paying attention to what is going on right in front of me, paying attention to what is going on inside of me. School is wonderful. I have 4 children that are all university graduates, and I take great pride in knowing that. But I also take more pride in knowing that they have developed the ability to learn. Learning is a lifetime process. It's not 2 years, it's not 4 years. It's something that goes on a daily basis. My mantra has basically been over many years, if I don't learn something every day, I am slipping. I am behind myself. And for that reason, I read a book. I'm always into a book, studying and learning about something. And I hope every one of you can say the same thing. If I pointed at you and said, what is the book you're reading? I hope it's not fiction, but it may be. Maybe you're learning something.
Some value.
Yeah, there we go. A little escapism, but it all comes down to, we need to be learning, we need to be progressing. Now, Sean and I come from this wonderful frozen tundra that we call Canada, the land of the frozen chosen. And this winter has been absolutely brutal. We got snow on October 23rd, and when I left on Tuesday to come here, I still had a 10-foot snowdrift in front of my front window. Winters are long in Canada, and for that reason, we tend to do things a little different. In Hawaii, I once asked the fellow, how do you grow tomatoes in Hawaii? And he looked at me and said, well, you just take an old tomato and throw it on the ground and push it into get it buried. Well, back home, we have to nurture them in little window boxes and keep them warm and keep them, just so that they're going to grow from the ceilings into something that's a little bit substantial. And then we put them outside and we cover them and protect them. And every night we cover them up with plastic. And in the morning you take the covers off so that the sun can get at them. And for for a long time, if you're lucky and the frost doesn't get to them, it'll slowly grow into these great plants that will produce tomatoes. The thing is that we have a growing season of 120 days. So we plant our crops, we grow our crops and harvest our crops at 120 days. So when we grow hard. Things happen quickly. That has, as an entrepreneur, and that's what I kind of profess to be, not a businessman, but an entrepreneur. When you see an opportunity, you have to grab a hold of it, and you have to grab a hold of it hard and do what you have to do with it. Maybe it's going to be a failure, maybe it's going to be a success, but today you're going to learn something. So as far as students go, as far as the way I approach my students, first of all, I'm an entrepreneur. I teach a class called Environmental Entrepreneurship. So as far as actual internships and those sort of opportunities for employment and training, I don't necessarily get too close to that. But when students, when I'm able to work with students, we learn a lot of things. The class that I taught, the students learned about composting, about biodiesel, about recycling, about deposit return programs, about energy conservation, energy production, soap making, all these sorts of things that are all being practiced to a certain extent on the campus at BYU. So it's a lot of fun. But for me to say, when you're finished this class, I'm going to have you a job, you know, you're going to be able to start functioning as an employee of the school or whatever, that's not likely going to happen. But as an entrepreneur, you see opportunities. Nick is working with me right now in that we were working on a project last year to reduce energy consumption. BYU Hawaii's mandate, or its theme, is enter to learn, go forward to serve. We have on our campus 7 students from 70 different countries. So we're not talking about just Hawaiians or mainlanders, we're talking about people from Mongolia, from China, Japan, Finland, from Botswana, Zambia, all over Africa, Central America, all over the Pacific Rim. So we have a real diversity of people, and the way we look at it is not just the idea that what we teach them is what they're going to end up doing. We believe that the things that they learn at that school, for us it's both spiritual and academic, they're going to be able to take back to their home country and use that to improve their family life, to improve the existence of their neighborhood and their actual country. A lot of these countries that they're from have no environmental protocol in place whatsoever. They just don't know. They don't have the people in place that know how to start up a recycling program or deal with any of those things. So we're talking to a very large crowd. BYU, my wife and I came to BYU in November of 2011. We had sold our recycling company about 4 years previous to that. My wife loves Hawaii, and we had the opportunity to come back as volunteers. And as we were waiting to come back, the president, school president, Marguerite, sent me an email and said, "What can you do? What do you want to do?" And I says, "Well, all right, I'm going to throw it at him. Entrepreneur, this is what I've done, this is what I've done. And I think we need to cut down the power consumption." Well, from the time we talked originally to the time we showed up, the power bill went up 40%. It was absolutely outrageous. We had a number of things that were really a problem. We had out of control energy costs, and we had no way of being able to get control of it. We didn't know what was going on. We had no way of quantifying what was happening. We had students and faculty that were there, and if we told them what the bill was, they were going, "Oh yeah, that's power bill at this campus, about $200 per student." So it was enormous costs, and we were just, it wasn't that there wasn't interest, it was just that to be able to put it all together in one package was a very difficult thing. Excessive waste. There was things that we were throwing in the garbage that had value, and we weren't able to capitalize on it. We didn't realize what was happening. Disposal and transportation costs. When you're hauling garbage and all it is garbage, it's just pure cost and resources. Well, like I say, we have a composting program now that didn't exist a year and a half ago. Our big project that it's not, I was going to say it's funny how things work out, but it's not funny. It is the way it's supposed to be. People connect for reasons, and sometimes you'll bump into a person thinking, wow, that was just kind of a coincidence that happened, but coincidences don't work like that. I had come to campus with the idea of helping with energy. By chance, we were in a meeting, my wife and myself, or a lunch actually, and we were told that this new vice president was coming to be on campus, and I should meet him someday. Well, the table we were going to sit at was full, and there was this one guy sitting at the table on the other side of the room. I thought, well, we'll just go sit with him. Well, that was David Lewis, my vice president. And shortly after that, another friend says, hey, you need to meet this person. Her name's Carol Fanga, who's a major environmental advocate, who introduced me to Shanah. And Shanah, in turn, helped us to she taught us, and her group taught the audit process, and because of that, we were able to do incredible things, including the debulbing. Our ECMs, our energy cost-saving measures, were divided into three things. One of them was a debulbing program, and the other, we pulled over 3,000 fluorescent bulbs out of the campus. This is just about a third of them. Amazing amount when you put them all together. We did two other things. We adjusted the thermostats in all the buildings, pretty much all the buildings. And at the same time, we went around and put our computers on an energy-saving program. Your computer that you have, you know that has a program that will reduce energy consumption. Very simple to set. If you aren't acquainted with it, we can talk after. It's about a 2-minute process. This is what became of that whole process. If we can get close to it here. Megawatts, talking megawatts is not necessarily something that a lot of people understand, but $376,000 is pretty clear numbers to most people. Over 1 year, that was our savings on campus. Since then, we've gone on for another few months, and we are now at over $427,000. Now that buys a lot of internships. That buys a lot of everything. And the wonderful thing about it is, it was almost a zero cost between the rebate program that Y Energy promoted and the work that was done in-house. There was really no cost to this entire program. The thing that's kind of fun about this is that over the last few months we've had diminishing returns. Now it's not that we're not saving money, it's just that we're grading it against the same month in the previous year, and we'd already started our energy reduction program. So Dave Lewis, my vice president, said, can we go for $500,000 this year? And I'll give you a budget even. So this year we're pushing for a $500,000 savings at the school. We have a healthy budget to get us there. I have access to whatever students I've used in the past for our debulbing and other programs, along with hiring those I need to push it through. We work primarily with the students. Nick is our student manager for our SWAT energy group. SWAT is a group, the committee that we formed on campus that involves students, faculty, our FM group people, and whoever's interested, with the idea of focusing on sustainable projects. SWAT means Sustainable World Action and Technology Team. Now, I'm running out of time, and I have a
couple minutes.
whole other topic to talk about. We have a problem on campus, as I'm sure every campus does, and that is that this week we have graduation. And when those students are finished graduating, they're going to get on a plane and they're going to leave. 50 pounds per suitcase, that's all they're going to be able to take with them. This is what our garbage bins used to look like after when students were moving out. It was just an absolute disaster. And if you take a close look, there's all sorts of things that are usable in there, but they weren't able to get rid of them, they weren't able to sell them or even give them to anyone, so it became a big problem. Our trash people, our sanitation people were all quite upset about what was going on, and we didn't exactly know what to do with it until a student by the name of Kelly Nelson saw a young couple digging through a garbage bin one day. They were trying to pull some pots and pans out of the bottom of the garbage bin. And she said, this has got to change. So what happened? The Give and Take was formed. The Give and Take is a very down-to-earth, low-budget project that was accomplished by taking a bunch of these IBC totes and cutting the lid, or cutting the top so that it forms the lid. These bins were put out throughout the campus, and when they were full, they were traded out for empty bins, and over the period of probably 2 weeks, the time between semester end and when the semester starts up again, we would fill 15 to 20 of these. The bins were taken to that little green building behind there, which was another building that we just happened to discover and painted up and made use of, again with Dave's permission. And then we graduated to C-Tainers. So now we're uptown and we have portable buildings that have allowed us the opportunity of putting all sorts of clothes, inventory, electronics, books, you name it. Whatever people have thrown away, we have sorted through the use of volunteers and one paid student to make it into an opportunity for service and for the same time to save students in the school a lot of money. Just to do the matrix on it, 2,328 items were given out at the Give and Take during the month of February. In other words, students would bring them in, things that they didn't need. We would sort them and put them on shelves. Other students that had just come in for the new semester would come in looking for clothes and other things. And 2,300 of those items left our Give and Take building. We averaged the value of those things at $5 per item. The value that month was $11,000, $11,640. And that is basing it on $5. Students, the most recent thing that we've started doing is asking those who come in, what do you think this is actually worth, which has pushed the value up over $20,000 per month. We're on the North Shore. It takes a lot of effort to get to Walmart or any of your bigger box stores. So the savings that we have on a monthly basis, either through the students or through the school, has been enormous. One paid student staff member, the rest are volunteers. What we ask is that you volunteer for an hour or so, and in turn you can shop without cost at the Give and Take. It's one of the great successes that we've had on campus with just very little cost attached to it. So with that, whoops, that is it.
Yeah.
We're done. We have a little minute and 17-second video that we did have attached to this, and maybe I'll try and find it if
See
you
if you want to try it while we
Okay.
chat, yeah. So we just have 12 minutes left before the end of the session. The end of the last session of the last day of a very full and good conference. So let's use it well. Does anyone have questions for the speakers to begin with? We have a couple of discussion questions, so we can jump to those, but I just wanted to make sure anyone, yeah?
I'll share two things. So Les brought up the Give and Take. They did a calculation. They valued that it's $175,000 a year in value to our campus community. But probably the best thing was I didn't know what delamping was.
Oh, yeah.
And Les kept coming and telling me, hey, we're going to do this. And I said, go ahead. And I had no clue. And then one day he came back and he said, I did it. And I thought, what did he do? He left my office, I act calm, and I ran across campus to look at the it was one of our main buildings.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I walked in and I couldn't even tell a difference.
Yeah. I'll never forget the first day I heard the word delamping, because we had this building that we had permission to reduce the energy use, and we had no idea. We were 8 students with no money, and I was at a conference somewhere, and I heard about a rebate for delamping, and I was like, what's that? And like, simply removing lamps? How do you do that? Yeah. Yeah, it was life-changing. Well, for everyone we worked with, there's been these huge savings. I'm happy you're here because I think one of the most important things that we probably all have experienced academically and professionally is the importance of bridging leadership, facilities, students, faculty, staff, custodians, like everyone, for so many reasons. Because you have, if you encounter pushback in any of those or misunderstanding anywhere, it just stops things. But when everyone gets on the same page at the same time, it's really powerful. So, okay, any other thoughts or questions?
I have 2 questions for Les. On the give and take program, the volunteers, are they student volunteers or they come from the community? And also, have you presented this concept, this operation to other higher eds that have dormitories?
First of all, our volunteers are from the community. We also have retired missionaries, couples that come from the mainland, spend time at the campus helping out where they can. A good portion of our volunteers are still students. We have couples that have kids and really can use things from the give and take. They have time, but they have absolutely no money. So they're quite willing to come over and help out. We had talked somewhat about presenting to other organizations. And I know Kelly had connected with someone, I think maybe at UH, but I can't say for sure. But it's such a simple process that it would definitely have value beyond our campus.
Well, Les is pulling this up. We'd love to have the event at BYU Hawaii next year. And if we do, that's one of the things that we do is we give people a tour, show what the give and take, how it's set up, and we'd be happy to help any of the schools. If they want to do the same thing, we'd be happy to help.
Oh boy. Does anyone want to teach me a course on running maps?
Oh my gosh. Okay, what did you do?
How
did you do that?
Control and scroll.
We open the give and take to the outside community for 1 week.
That's
per
right.
month?
One of our challenges is that it's become so popular that everybody, community and students, want to come in and enjoy the value that's there. So what we do is the students have priority. Students always have priority, and then the last week of the month, the community is allowed to come in. There we go. Thank you so much. So I think I got the video here. If anyone's
While we're pulling it up, I have a question for the BYU folks. We've never had an applicant from BYU for the RISE program.
I was just looking and wondering about
every
that.
other school. Why is that? What can I do to help?
You get your first one?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay,
I
cool.
was gonna talk to you guys after.
Awesome.
Yeah.
He wants your job, probably.
It's big shoes to fill. My goodness, the whole world is sad to Marguerite.
Wow, I'm really good at messing this up. Anyway.
So, when working with Les and the other facilities management team, I've been like super stoked on all these cool ideas and stuff, and I had all these awesome visions and ideas of making it big things and stuff. And then the more I dive in, the more I get kind of intimidated, and then I start seeing letters after people's names, like MBAs and PhDs and stuff, and I'm like, this is out of my ballpark, you know? And then I saw some of your RISE interns, and I see that it's not always the case. I don't know, do you see what I'm trying to say? Like,
Yeah, no, I do.
Point of your
That's-
presentation, I think.
Yeah, I think our motto used to be confidence, connections, careers, and it's just a matter of, you know, having that mentor to build your confidence and say,
Right.
no, you're doing good, encouraging you, and then connections, knowing the right people to talk to and not being intimidated by a bunch of letters at the end of the name. I liked what you were saying as far as not coming from an academic background and really having a huge impact. You know, people are skilled, and if I think I had a Steve Jobs quote up there. I mean, Steve Jobs was not academic himself, and he's one of the most successful entrepreneurs of today. So, yeah, I think it's empowering to realize that we can all make a difference.
Except me. Might have to come back next year to get the rest of it.
I think it's the computer.
Yeah. I mean, maybe all of us could speak to what we're looking for when we hire, because we've all hired people, right? So Scott, why don't we answer that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that. I used to live in San Francisco, and it's kind of the clean tech hub of the world, you know. At least we like to think so. And everyone had their business cards, and there were a lot of consultants, and they had lead AP, BS, MBA, whatever, like 12 letters after their names. And I had a friend who was a college dropout, and he just said, you know what, I'm just gonna make stuff up. And he started putting letters out, BGSE, and people would be like, oh, BGSE, I wonder what that is. And then, you know, like, no idea. So I think it's, you know, it's all what your confidence level is, and I think experience counts way more than anything else. We have a video. What's the girl that young doing with a stroller? I don't understand.
She's volunteering, so she can, yeah.
I'll sign autographs later.
Where do your students do this in the music, or?
Yeah, our students did it, yeah.
He's exhausted from the
There you go.
Nice. I love the Utah Jazz blanket that he had there. But yeah, just to finish up, I think you know, what I look for is competence. I think as long as somebody is straightforward, knows what they know, knows what they don't know, is willing to plug in and just work hard, that's the most important thing. Everything else can kind of be learned on the job, unless it's a really high-level job, which you know, 99% of the time is not the case. So.
Yeah, to add to that, I'd say the ability to research and understand what they're looking for, and not just having one resume that you send to everyone, and just really customizing your application for what that position is asking for. And you know, it comes across if you have a, you know, poorly formatted resume. It's like, okay, what is your competency with Word? Or, you know, just those little things of showing, you know, yourself in a well-formatted way, I think goes a long way. Because you look at a lot of resumes at the end of the day, and you know, it's those things that stand out.
Take your time and study out who you're going to approach, and be confident. Don't be bold necessarily, but be confident. And if the United States doesn't have anything for you, call me in Canada. We've got tons of jobs. And that is a fact.
Because we have the brain drain down to America.
Actually, what it is we have, like, we're such a resource-based industry that they're trying to develop a lot of those things. And like Alberta, for instance, is looking for 10,000 technically trained people within the next year. Like, and they need over 100,000 in the next couple of years. So it's.
So if you like snowboarding.
Yeah, if you like snowboarding. Everything from engineering to accounting, business opportunities. I have a student that was at BYU that's basically running my company back home now. And it's just, if you've got qualifications, they'll let you in. Put it that way. If you're just a guy in the street that wants to use a shovel, we've got a few of those already. So, yeah, I know. Sorry, but yeah, it's just we have some of the, like that back and oil find. You probably heard some about it. It's developing in northern United States, Montana area, and southern part of Canada, along with our oil sands areas, and just some of the immigration process is so much more flexible for getting into Canada than it is in the States. Like, there's a program just started up recently. If you have an idea, a business idea, a tech idea that you want to develop, there's angel investors and other funds that if you qualify through them, you've got your green card basically. So.
And there's those in Hawaii too. There's a lot of incubators happening right now. It just seems to be the thing right now. So there's all sorts of high-tech incubators, sustainability incubators, and if you can find your way into those with your idea, they help you build your business plan. You have to work really hard, but
Yeah.
you get funded along the way, and it's kind of competitive. It's a good way to learn, and you might just be the one that gets the funding and builds your company here. So.
And that, yeah, it's just find your place. Find your place, work hard, and be smart, and you'll roll.
Yeah, and just to be the final answer to the question of what you look for when you hire, find your place. I think that's it. When I feel that there's an alignment between the passion and the skills and what I need to get done, I know that they're going to learn and grow and get exactly like, I'm dying to do this because I really wanted to learn this and I wanted to try that and I can do that within this position. And then I see their passion and their interest, and then when they show me things, like I give really ambiguous challenges sometimes. I'm like, here's a pile of stuff, can you make this usable for what we need to do next week? And they come back with a couple of options, and one of them is just what I needed. I'm like, that's hard to beat. And that's, I would say I have 10 staff. Jonathan's one of them sitting over here, and the thing that they have, they are super, super different in their background, how far they went in school, how they did in school, all of those things. The thing that they have in absolute common is their passion and their willingness to show up and give everything they have, be in good communication, put their egos aside, humbly say, I don't know, reach to each other, to me, to resources to figure it out, and do their very best at every single step. And it's always inspiring and empowering for everyone, and our clients love it, and that's how I think good business can run. So I don't look at resumes very often. Yeah. I think we're POW. Anything burning? Any burning last thoughts or questions? Well, thanks for a great session, a great conference, everybody.